This is Laura Lee live. I think the more that I start making videos, the sillier they're gonna get. Welcome back to my second virtual event of my The Dark Matter of Mona Starr book tour. This is our second video. It is a virtual version of a Virginia Festival of the Book event that was supposed to be happening this weekend, but we all know why everything is canceled. So instead of crying about it, which is what I've done a lot of, I'm trying to channel that energy into finding new ways to connect with you all. So if we can't connect in person, with these beautiful authors that I was supposed to talk to, then we're going to try to have a fun time on the interweb. Just a quick little description of what my book is. Then I'm going to get into some panel questions with our guest moderator in the studio here. We'll have time for your questions, and I'll also share a few resources. So that's sort of what to expect in the next, 30 minutes, because that's about all of my life that I can plan at one time. So my book is called The Dark Matter of Mona Starr. It is a young adult graphic novel about a girl named Mona, who's a 14-year-old depressed teenager in Northern Virginia. And it's really of her story about dealing with her mental and physical health. So she's dealing with some depression, anxiety, which I personify as the matter, which is sort of to me, I always feel like that the negative emotions that I personify in this way, they always sort of start in my chest, like a black hole that like sucks me in. So that's why there's like a celestial sub-theme with her story, and maybe you guys can relate with feeling like there's a bit of a black hole in your heart right now. So hopefully her story will inspire some good conversations and help give language to some of these emotions that sometimes we don't always have words for. So in this talk, we're going to be focused a little less on the self-care elements in the book, which I really love talking about, but those are some of the other sessions. This one is going to be all about graphic novels and comics as a format. I was so looking forward at the festival to meet some other graphic artists, but yeah, I guess we'll have to stay online friends for now, but I'm very honored to have a special guest in the studio. If we can't meet in person, we were going to do come together, since we're both local, to do this panel as a pair, but due to health issues, now there's a backup plan for the backup plan. So I have a virtual moderator here in the studio. Let's welcome Tasha Birkhead. Tasha Birkhead. Oh, hello. Welcome to the studio.
Hello, Laura Lee.
Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure, and I think we need to give you a formal introduction. I'm sitting here with Laura Lee Gulledge, author of The Dark Matter of Mona Starr, is the Artner Award nominated author of YA graphic novels, Will and Wit, and Page by Page, as well as interactive book sketchbook dares, 24 ways to draw out your inner artist. She is also a teaching artist, comics journalist, musical librettist, and proponent of artnerlove. She is based in the wonderful Charlottesville, Virginia, on the planet Earth. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Can I give you an introduction,
Oh,
Tasha?
yes, please.
Which is lovely to meet you, by the way. You're not what I expected.
Likewise.
Tasha Birckhead is a young adult librarian who has worked with Jefferson Madison Regional Library for 10 years. She holds an MLIS degree along with a youth services certification. As a native Charlottesvillian, she shares her passion for reading with teens in the community through books and programs at the library. Oh, that's so inspiring. I would say we should partner on something, but maybe at another time.
We can start here.
Well, that's true. See, I gotta stop being so negative about things, what things could be, and think about if something is better than perfect.
The possibilities are endless.
Well, I'm excited to answer your questions, and if anybody out there has any questions, please write them in, and we will or comments or observations or just feelings, that's cool too. So
send our way. We'll read them
yeah.
soon. But let's start with my questions.
Okay. Oh gosh.
In your new book, The Dark Matter of Mona Starr, there are a few glimpses of our community. How has living in Charlottesville changed your style as an artist?
Charlottesville has been very inspiring as a place. I lived here before I moved to New York, and it helped boost my confidence and give me sort of encouragement to like go after my dreams in the big city. So it's interesting to come back to Charlottesville at a very interesting point in time a few years ago. And I feel like that I really want to reflect, I don't know, almost like my wishes of like my ideal things I see happening in Charlottesville. So like in my second book, I have the characters like on bikes riding through downtown, and I have different communities coming together to Artner, which is something that I feel like is what sometimes we need help with, really in all arts communities, I suppose, is like how to all work together to not be in little bubbles all the time. And I don't know, Charlottesville, it definitely has inspired me as like a location, and as like the people who've been supportive of Mona in particular. I feel like I definitely wove in some Charlottesville love in this project because I got like a grant from the New City Arts Initiative. I had Patreon supporters. I spent part of it working at McGuffey, art studios. So I don't know, there's definitely a lot of Charlottesville love in the book, which is why I was really excited about a launch party here. But we will have a virtual version, and it'll be great.
This is fabulous. You and I and all these fine folks online. Hello, hello. What is the process in making a graphic novel?
The process is long.
I hear that.
We always joke that it takes twice as long as a regular book to make, but half the time to read. So it's really always a labor of love because you want to just start drawing it. And a lot of kids are like, oh, you just start drawing the book and you figure it out. It's like, no, you have a plan. Because no one tells you that creativity is actually like problem solving. So I start off by drawing my characters so I can see them. Because once I can see them visually, that's when they start to activate my brain and get the ideas going. And then I'll start to lay out my plot using cork boards, because I can't just sit and write a script, and my brain just doesn't work that way. So I write down like all the elements that I know I want in the story, and then I arrange them on cork boards, because to me the order is what's hard to figure out, is like how to string them all the different pieces together. So I'll do that before I write a script. And then it's like, script, thumbnails, editing, all that stuff. And so it takes like a year of sort of working on it on-off before you actually get to the drawing part. And then the drawing is like, I always feel like it's the fun part, but I still complain about it. I was like, this is really hard too. But that takes like, I don't know, like another year of the drawing, and I feel like explaining how to make a comic just sounds really tedious and time. This is why normally when I teach about it, there's like live drawing and things, because it's so many steps in the process, it can make it feel intimidating. Think like, oh wow, that sounds like a lot of work, I could never do that. But if you boil it down to like 6 panels, it makes it seem less daunting than like a 200-page graphic novel. But it's all the same steps, where first you get to know your character, let them tell you what to do. Diagram your plot however works for your brain, which might not be writing a script. It might be like Post-it notes, it might be a Venn diagram, like however you can like plan your story, and then you draw it out.
Layers of the onion?
Yes, there's a lot of layers in the onion. And sometimes it makes you cry, but it's...
Oh.
I was trying to make it on my way. I'm trying to catch up.
Very, very quick. Unlike your other books, The Dark Matter of Mona Starr deals with depression. How important do you feel that teens should know about mental illness?
Well, it's definitely a timely topic right now that I think is being normalized a lot more. Like even having a therapist character in Mona, I just felt like, why wouldn't Mona have a therapist? Like everybody has a therapist, but I don't see it reflected. So I think I wanted to just tell a story that made having feelings and having issues and, you know, that makes this stuff just normal instead of there's something wrong with you. Because sometimes if you don't see that vulnerability reflected in the people around you, you think that there's something wrong with it. Oh, I shouldn't do that. So, yeah, and when you're young, you don't always know how to deal with all the stuff going on or how to label it. Like, you'll have an emotion like, how are you feeling? Like, I don't even know what I'm feeling. So, I feel like, yeah, so I feel drawn to like, well, here's a bunch of metaphors that I use, and here's some language that I use, so maybe you can use some of this and combine it in different ways to personalize it, to give you some tools for your toolbox.
Amazing. What are the ways that teens should deal with the matter in their lives?
Oh, the matter. That voice that tells you that you're terrible at everything, and don't go on Facebook Live because you'll make a fool of yourself. You know, that voice.
Yes, that voice. We know that voice well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I call it the inner critic. Some people call it the fraud police. I feel like it has a lot of names. And when you're stressed is when it like comes in, like I hear it stronger. When there's like doubt and uncertainty, like times like this. So I guess I find that when my advice for dealing with the matter in your life, definitely give voice to it somehow, because I find that you have to at least acknowledge what it's saying. So listen, like, I don't know, don't like obsessively like just like, you know, don't hold up with your matter during this crisis, you know, don't spend that much time with them, but listen to like, okay, write down like, what am I really telling myself? Like, what is this voice actually saying to me? Because once I can see it visually, then it almost takes a little bit of the power away from it. Because it breaks it down into just like real words, and I can use logic on it and be like, well, is that true? You know, am I a terrible person? Like, why am I telling myself that? And so, yeah, getting it outside of you in some way, because I feel like art is a way of like an exorcism, but also just having ways to release negative energy and just anxious energy and stuff that's like pent up in you. So maybe that's like, for me, definitely like exercise and dance and anything with movement to help basically shake it out of you. But when you're depressed, you know, I don't always feel like moving. A lot of times you just, you know, need to sort of wallow in it a bit. So so it's like a balance. You want to like maybe do some reflection, make some journaling, do some art or creativity to sort of give voice to it, but then also just get back into your body. And don't spend all your time up here. So it's sort of contradictory advice.
True. 2 truths. Or maybe more. Why do you think graphic novels can convey more than words?
I think people read a lot of pictures now. I feel like, I guess in education we'd call it visual literacy. But I think people do read a lot, consume more pictures than words a lot of the time, especially young people, with all the different types of media that we're taking in. And I think you can, of course, tell a lot with a single image. I think in comics it's interesting that you can show so much that ideally the pictures should do more of the talking than the words, because then I find that a reader can interpret it more, they can like personalize it more. If you have the words, it's like, oh, this is exactly what that character's thinking, or that's what's happening. But if it's just a picture and you're putting together the story from like, okay, here's the character's facial expression and body language, and here's like what's, you know, the other things happening in the scene, and maybe what they say doesn't quite match with how they're acting. And I don't know, I feel like you can put together a lot psychologically when you have both the words and pictures working together. And also just, I don't know, I like to play with metaphors. So like, you know, drawing, you know, so Mona, when she like goes on the internet and is like looking up her old friends and she gets sucked into the black hole, she like goes out into space, because sometimes when I'm my depressive state, I sort of personify it as space. And I feel like that maybe that, other people can relate to that image and make it a little more, I don't know, personal. I just went on a tangent there.
Oh, that was fine. We love it. Artist.
You're very kind.
Oh, love to see an artist in their element. What is your use of shadow and light can be a very powerful instrument, as you just demonstrated. What are some of your reasons behind it?
I love shading. Shading's my favorite part. Penciling is hard, inking is fun, but shading is like delicious because that's where you're sort of making everything three-dimensional in your space. So it's a really fun part of the process for me. And I think that for her story, it is about like, I have the matter is this like jet black ink, form in the book. Everything is super gray. And so then there's just the matter, everything else, and then this little bit of yellow. So there's a spot yellow, which is like, oh, I finally have color in a book. Yay.
Nice. So then, what was maybe your favorite tool that you used to make this book?
Oh, it was definitely with the shading, I used a watercolor graphite. It's like a paintable graphite, like the graphite on the inside of a pencil, but a tin of it. And it looks like a cute little eyeshadow. The brand's called Art Graph, just to give them like, it's watercolor graphite. And you can paint with it. And it's just so fast and so easy to manipulate. Yeah, because working on doing anything, over and over and over like you do in a comic, like you make one stylistic choice and you have to do that for like hundreds of pages. So this was like so much less stress than previous books where I'd used more digital shading, where I did like India ink washes where you can't like erase anything because it's just permanent. So this book, every decision I made was like, how can I be as nice to myself as possible? Like use materials that are the most fun, keep the things as simple, don't go back and edit things. We're not gonna do stuff on the computer except for the lettering and the spot yellow. So I think it's because Mona I knew would be a challenge emotionally to get into, so I tried to keep it tuned into like the fun as possible, like singing a lot in the studio and keeping, the materials as like simple, like what they say, it's like keep it simple, stupid. Kiss.
So with this whole process, what was the best and what was the hardest part?
That was a good question.
Thank you.
I guess best part, shading is the most fun, which is also towards the end, and you're kind of loopy by then, so you're just sort of so you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so you get that extra burst of like, we've got this. I think the hardest part, it's kind of, I hate to say that it's all really hard, because then it's like, why do we do these things? I guess the hardest part is writing there's the very beginning, like the script, like actually boiling it down, an abstract idea, into anything tangible. Because I think anyone who's a creative knows that when it's in the idea phase, it's like perfect. It's like when you remember a dream, you wake up like, I had the most amazing dream, you'll never believe it. And then you try to tell somebody and it immediately falls apart.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's like the discouraging part, because you know what it's going to end up is going to be totally different than how you start. And so it's just sort of a little heartbreaking to get started, because you're like, no, it's gonna suck at the beginning. It's gonna be, it's like gonna go through some reinventions, and it's getting emotionally attached to it too. So I think that beginning part of just like, I'm just gonna make this, put it in a box. I know it's, it feels limiting.
But there's a beauty and a joy in that struggle, isn't there?
There is. Cause also you like fought for that. Like I fought for Mona. It took a few times to like crack that egg open. But yeah, so it's first like seeing it. So it's like that part, and it's definitely the hardest, I think, at the beginning, with like obstacle to overcome. So if you have an idea, just like, don't worry about writing a script. Just write what would be on the back of my book. Just write like the elevator pitch of your idea. I find that's the best starter. That takes the pressure off of like, I don't know all the plots and the conflicts and all blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, just write like 3 sentences. What would it be about? Just the blurry watercolor.
Yes. Was there a specific audience you had in mind when writing about the dark matter of Mona Starr?
I try not to obsess over the audience, because I think when you're thinking about, like, you know, who's going to buy my book, and, you know, you sort of can then, like, pander to your audience too much. Like, well, they're really into TikTok, I should put TikTok in there, you know, I don't know. So I sort of just think my audience is people like me, and it's also me. Because a lot of authors say, you know, you make the book that you wish you could have read back when you were younger. So there's definitely an element of trying to fill that void on the bookshelf that younger me needed to read to, you know, maybe see herself reflected and be like, oh, I shouldn't be, like, ashamed of, like, certain things about me. It's just who I am. And so I definitely love targeting younger people. I feel like I'm very transparent, because I was, like, in 8th grade when I decided that I wasn't good enough to be an artist and that I should just be practical, and that I didn't have anything to say. So it was sort of pointless to do this selfish endeavor of going into the arts. And I think that's part of the reason that I target that age, like why I became a middle school art teacher and why I do young adult fiction, is so I could be that role model that I didn't have, just to say, hey, you have something to say, and, you know, you're one of my peers. We're just at different phases of the hero's journey. But someone else to, like, because I would get glimmers of it, like, you know, the, like, welcome, like, you have permission to do these things that you want to do.
Love that phrase. Different phases of, say it again.
Of the hero's journey.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Because kids are, you know, they'll show me their sketchbook and they'll be like, oh, like this, oh, well, that's not the best. I'm like, no, the fact that you're showing a professional your sketchbook is incredibly brave. And also, that's, I don't know, I was drawing, like, awful looking Garfield cartoon people in middle school. Like, I feel like that we compare so much, especially with social media. We compare, like, well, look at what that artist is doing, and I don't do that. But we're all just, to me, because I think about time weirdly, so I imagine, like, well, if you keep going with this, then, like, you're like who I used to be, and you could be, like, there's not that much divide between us, because it's the passion that matters. Like, if you're actually putting pencil to paper, I care about that more than how good you are at it.
That makes sense, and that's beautiful that you think that way.
Okay. Keep drawing, weirdos. Keep drawing.
Well, that makes perfect segue to the next question. How should we treat or become Artners like Mona Starr?
Oh, Artners! Oh, I'm working on a book with my Artner right now about Artnering. It's all very Artnering. It's a lot of Artner love in the air. I guess if you want, I mean, you probably already have Artners in your life. You might not just label them that, but anybody who you do any shared creation of anything, whether it's community or creatively, that is Artnering. Or even when people are just supportive of each other. So maybe you're in different mediums. Maybe you're like musicians and writers and artists, but you know, support each other's work and you give each other support. Yeah.
Like us.
Yes, we are Artners. We are Artnering right now, live on Facebook.
Live on Facebook.
Hashtag vulnerability. So I guess advice for young Artners is, I don't know, you just have to come up with an idea and ask for help with something. I feel like the easiest way to Artner with someone is just ask for help with something. Something that you want to do. Include somebody. Boom, that's it.
Nice. Are there any current projects you're working on that you can tell us a little bit about? Or are they top secret?
Top secret. Oh, the top secret. In the arts, when people are like, oh, you should like keep, you know, your dreams to yourself, you don't want to jinx it. In the arts, it's like you have to talk about it, because otherwise it'll like never happen. So I guess I'm working on a book about Artnering with my Artner, Laura Larkin. So that's nice to have something to like, okay, we're gonna work on this in the studio, which is nice to be able to do virtually, because she's up in Vermont. So there's that. I've made a bunch of new street art, which I'm gonna post around whenever I can get together with Artners. And I've also been making some new mini comics, so I'm going to be posting more about that soon, because they're like little tiny mini comics. Oh, and this month, also, I just want to mention if you're local, well, I guess they're online too, but I'm in this month's Echo World, which I didn't mention like the previous. It's like it's a little mindful comic. My cat makes a cameo. I don't know how to hold it. Like, oh. But it's the Echo World, if you want to find it online. Trying to think what else is going on. I guess also just this series of Facebook videos. And
there's
more.
Events.
There's more. For the next 3 Saturdays, there's going to be virtual events. One of them will not be Facebook Live. It's through an online summit, but there's info on my blog on my website where you can get info about that, which I'll hold up. It's whoislauralee.com. But yeah, next week it'll be fun. It's going to be all about graphic medicine and healing practices for artists. It's going to be very about like how to make a self-care plan, which I feel like I want to tell everybody about in every video, but I don't want to be too repetitive. So it'll be really fun.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you, Tasha. This has been a very nice conversation.
I'm sure we have some questions from our viewers.
Oh yes, if anybody has any questions, please type them in. And I guess Tasha checks the questions. Tasha, also known as Jawara King, who's been a really awesome Artner producer on these videos today. I'm going to share a couple resources real quick. Let's see, past tense maybe wrote down. Let's see, with graphic novels, I wanted to share some of my favorite graphic novel recommendations. Because I know one thing I love about comics is that there's so many different types of formats. So if I was fancy enough with the video, I would like show this on the screen, but I'm just gonna read them to you. Okay, other graphic medicine books I'd recommend are Ellen Forney's Marbles, Katie Green's Lighter Than My Shadow, and Rachel Lindsay's RX. So those are 3 books more for like adults or teenagers, I guess I'd say, that explore mental illness, eating disorders, bipolar disorder. Then let's see, my favorite comics for like beginner readers or like also good for like ESL students would be Owlie by Andy Ronton and Corgi by Christian Slade. That one's like wordless and it's a magical corgi. It's just really fun. My favorite ones with the coolest materials that are more untraditional are of course, my favorite thing is Monsters by Emil Harris, which is ballpoint pen. And I love the Kabuki series by David Mack, which is like watercolor collage. Of course, Linda Berry, he's been putting up some awesome prompts online during this time. Her book, What It Is, or really any of her books. And Cursed Pirate Girl by Jeremy Bastian. They look like they're etchings. They're just delicious. My favorite books for their weird format, because I think you can really stretch this the medium of comics and how you use it. So the ones with the most unique formats to me are Meanwhile by Jason Shiga, which has these tabs on the side. Oh my gosh, like middle school boys, they're obsessed with that one. Here by Richard McGuire, which is one place like over the span of the time of the universe. Then Wordless books, edited by David Barona. They're actually reprints of wordless German woodcuts, like really old, like original graphic novels. Then Annie Sullivan and the Trial of Helen Keller by Joseph Lambert, because it incorporates sign language in a really unique way. And then, and of course, I'll just give shout outs to the very first graphic novels I've ever read, Fun Home by Alison Bechtel and Blankets by Craig Thompson, because those are the 2 that inspired me to jump into this medium that I never knew existed and somehow, I don't know, moved to New York with a dream to make books and it somehow paid off. So shout outs to those Artner crushes. So I think those are just some recommendations for anyone who's interested in comics of things to potentially check out during this,
good time to catch up on reading. Do we have any questions from the world?
So the world has been pointing out many of your lovely quotables, and Tasha loves her virtual identity.
Yay! Hi, Tasha!
One question was, how do you best like to Artner?
How do I best like to Artner? I like to Artner all sorts of ways. Oh, that sounded that sounded different than I intended. Let's see. What I love to Artner, even really just casually. My favorite type of Artnering is just when I talk to friends about our ideas and our dreams, and we like daydream, and we just sort of play off of each other and bounce around ideas, and we come up with like new solutions to problems or like new opportunities. So actually just the verbal, casual kind is like my favorite, because you don't even realize that you're Artnering, but it's because there's no materials required. It's just world building together. I think that's my favorite kind.
Tasha asked, what do you think of the format of manga clubs, Japanese comics?
Oh, whoa. It's funny because when I first got into comics, everyone was like, oh, you're a girl in comics, you must be really into like manga. And I only read like 4 graphic novels before I did page by page. And because everyone was so about the manga, I'm really stubborn, I'm tenacious, so I decided I'm not going to read any manga because I don't want to do what's expected of me. So I think Buddha's like the only like more manga style book I've ever read. Yeah, I appreciate the style, but it's never been I was like, I'll get around to it later, because I didn't want it to also influence my style accidentally. So I have to say, it is sort of a void, and I'm embarrassed to say, it's like a void in my reading. Actually, if you want to recommend a good anime book, I would love like a good recommendation of for beginners. Because I feel like now I can probably read it and I won't accidentally appropriate anything. Because I was really worried about that at the beginning of getting into comics, that I would just accidentally copy other people. But yeah, I probably need an Artner on, some book recommendations.
Emerson Hart asks,
Emerson Hart?
does music play a role when you are creating?
Hell yeah, it does. I cannot write without music. I can't draw without music. I can't live without music.
Life without music.
Yeah, it is not life. It's not living.
Nope.
Because also I can't access that flow state. Because to me, when you're in that flow creative state, you need some other sort of stimulation to almost give your conscious brain something to juggle, so then your subconscious can actually dive into like the deeper work. It's almost like a weird hypnosis thing. So finding the right music, when I say I have to have it. And sometimes I'll spend like 20 minutes like, no, it's this. And like, oh, that's not good. Until you find the right vibe, you're like, yes, my brain needs like to listen to this same Radiohead album a millionth time in a row, but that's what it wants right now. And so I make a playlist for each book. So there's a playlist in the back of Mona that is compiled of what I was listening to while working on the book. I also make just a lot of playlists in general. I just finished my pandemic playlist, which is on my Spotify, or Laura Lee Gulledge, if you want to access it. And I also sing and dance in the studio. I feel like that Mona is a lot more airy and lighter as a book than Will and Wit, because with Will and Wit I was very closed up in my studio and very like, but with Mona I was like moving a lot and singing a lot and doing a lot more breathing and paying a lot more attention to how my music was affecting my mood. And I feel like it actually made the book a lot better. I know I could talk about the music stuff like all day, but I'll like wrap it up a little right there.
Maurice says, we miss seeing you in person, but love hearing your voice and seeing your face.
Hi, Dad!
He asks, how do you keep Rory from walking all over a page you are drawing?
Oh, how do I keep Rory, my cat, from walking all over a page I'm drawing?
Well, thankfully, my dad built me this adjustable drafting tabletop, so I have it up at like this angle when I'm drawing on it. So when Rory times to come in, he tries to squeeze by, and I'm like, no, you can't. But then I'll just like pick him up and I'll hug him until he forgets. But yeah, and a lot of treats. A lot of treats. Oh, Rory cat.
And I think...
Are there any other questions? Is that it?
That might have been the last question. There's a lot of comments.
Oh my gosh, thank you everybody.
A lot of love.
Watching.
A lot of compliments.
Yay!
A lot of hearts.
Sweet. Oh, I feel so full of gratitude. I have it's like glittery signs. Thank you everybody so much for trying something new. I know I'm going kind of dizzy from learning all these new adjusting to all the changes that are happening in the world like really fast right now. So thank you for trying something new. And I think that we'll figure out these different ways to connect as humans. And we'll figure it out together. Yes, together. Okay, I guess the last thing, I will close by saying I'm accepting pre-orders. Okay, till I plug myself. I'm accepting pre-orders for Dark Matter of Mona Starr. I can take 10 more pre-orders for, 10 more for hardcover and 10 more for paperback right now that I'm gonna send out on Friday. And so you can find my store at whoislauralee.com. And I'm gonna give you a raffle ticket because I'm giving all the pre-orders a raffle ticket for a special drawing for an original page from the book. Woo! So I'm holding these videos for the next 3 Saturdays. The 4th one is in the series is on the April 11th is the virtual book launch party. So I'm gonna try to make that as much of an actual party as you can on a video. I guarantee, Rory will be there. And and last thing is, I have to say, one of my big bummers about not having a book tour in person is that I had been stockpiling really cute clothes for this book tour as a hermit, and so I just want to show off my magic shoes. Aren't they so cute with their little hearts on them? So you guys just have to see that. Okay, so now, my ego is appeased. Okay, well, stay safe and kind and healthy, everybody out there. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your Saturday, and thank you for spending some time with me and Tasha and Jawara. And yes, special thanks to Jawara, who's been helping me with this video behind the camera and hosting me. So thank you. Okay, and love you all. Mwah! Bye.